Let's play quietly. Hey everybody, it's Brian here from Let's Play Quietly, and this is another installment of the weekly Whisper. Today, I'm going to be talking about a game that is one of the more memorable games I've ever played, and that is Deadly Premonition. And the footage that you're going to see today is from the PC port of the game, which is the Deadly Premonition Director's Cut. And you're actually watching the opening scene right now, where you have two young boys, Isaac and Isaiah Ingram, who are walking in the woods with their grandfather. And they stumble upon a body in the woods, a young woman who has been killed and has been bound to a big red tree in the forest. You can see that this game is designed by Swery and directed by Swery, and it is a game that is a very big homage to Twin Peaks, which is why I find it to be one of the more memorable games that I've ever played. It's also a game that mechanically is not very good at all, but its personality more than makes up for its faults. And so here we are seeing the body of, I believe it's Anna, who is found at the beginning of the game, and she is the reason that Agent Francis York Morgan is going to come to the town of Greenvale, I believe it is, and investigate this murder. And of course, that's very much a parallel to Agent Dale Cooper coming to Twin Peaks to investigate the murder of Laura Palmer. And as many parallels as there are to Twin Peaks in Deadly Premonition, there were actually more when the game was first developed around 2004. This game didn't come out until, I want to say 2012 or 13 on the Xbox 360 and the PlayStation 3. But it was developed years before as a game called Rainy Woods. And when that game was being developed and it was shown at the Tokyo Game Show, I believe in 2007, it was in such bad shape, technically, and was so close to the storylines and characters of Twin Peaks that it was pretty widely criticized, and so some of the elements were changed in order to distance itself a little bit from Twin Peaks. But as you can see, the DNA of Twin Peaks is running through this game from the very beginning. These two twins that you see right there are very much meant to be like the dwarfs from Twin Peaks. And the sheriff, George Woodman, originally looked more like Harry Truman from the Twin Peaks TV show. And there is just a myriad of references to Twin Peaks for fans of that show here. And we'll see in a minute, when you get introduced to Agent Francis York Morgan, just how close to Agent Dale Cooper he actually is. But what we're seeing now is the reactions of people who knew Anna and how they're handling her death. And so you're kind of getting a flyover of some of the major characters and locations that you're going to see as the game unfolds. This game is pretty amazing in that it has a very small budget, and it is very technically challenged. In fact, this PC version that I'm showing you now, I could not even play past the first few minutes of the game because it is so choppy and so stuttery and laggy that I couldn't even film myself playing the game, which is why you're basically just seeing the introduction here. I originally played it on the Xbox 360, and while the controls worked fine on that console, and the game ran decently overall, it's just a very janky and clumsy game to begin with. If you're familiar with the controls in the early Resident Evil games, the controls in this game are a little more straightforward, but they are absolutely as janky as the controls in those early Resident Evil games. The driving in this game is comical because it is as if a pencil was stuck through the middle of the car models, and it just pivots on that one point when you're driving. So, but the funny thing about it is that none of that matters, because the personality of the game is so weird and kind of charming that you are willing to look past all of the technical issues in order to enjoy the game. It's just super weird, and if you like Twin Peaks, then you'll know the type of weirdness that I'm talking about, because I think Swery does a great job of capturing the unique types of personalities that you would see in Twin Peaks and putting them here in this town that is the location for this murder and investigation. What we're seeing right now is a little girl who is being told a story, and you're not seeing who the storyteller is. It could be Agent Francis York Morgan, who is older now and is recounting a story from his younger days. But the game presents this as a story that is being told, and it's not the first time or the last time in the game that it sort of plays around with the fourth wall. So in any case, as you start out here, we're finally going to see our main character in a moment, and right from the get-go, you will see a big parallel to Twin Peaks, because if you watch Twin Peaks, then you know that Agent Cooper would frequently speak into his digital recorder or his tape recorder and talk to Diane, who is a character that you don't see, but he has these frequent conversations with. In this game, Agent Francis York Morgan is constantly having a conversation with Zach, who is basically you that he's talking to throughout the game, although they play with that by the end of the game. And as the TV sort of clicks on here, we are taken to a scene where we see Agent Francis York Morgan, and the weirdness begins. These two twins, Isaac and Isaiah, who are now sort of in the form of angels, are modeled after the man from another place in Twin Peaks. And in this room, the main character, Agent York, is going to come here on a number of occasions, but this first time that he is here, you're just here to sort of learn the controls and kind of inspect some things that could be clues to what you're going to see in this murder investigation. And so, like, as he walks over to the dresser over here, you see these figurines, and they are different characters that you're going to meet in the game. And that will change, I believe, over the course of the game. So, he's just kind of poking around here and seeing what some of the objects in this room are, and some of them will evolve over the course of the game. But you'll notice that the leaves on the ground are flowing up in the air, because this is sort of it's almost like the Upside Down in Stranger Things. And he sometimes will visit this other dimensional room. So this part here, again, you're just kind of learning the controls and walking around. And even in this room, you can kind of see the choppiness of the gameplay, because when York moves, he's moving very slowly, and that is not just the effect of this scene, that is the choppiness of the PC port of this game. And it's not even that bad here, but when the game actually started up after the initial scenes, it was unplayable. So, in any case, you're seeing some of the collectibles here, and eventually you will exit this room, but not before he talks to these kids, and they speak very cryptically. Could you wait a little longer? Things are about to get started. The way they move, the way they animate, the dialogue that they have, it's all very weird and unsettling. And these kids are straight weird throughout the entire game, whether you're in this other dimension or even in that initial cutscene. The characters all have their own just unique personalities and different mannerisms and things like that. And when you combine that with some of the cheesy dialogue, it's really, it just lends to this overall sense of weirdness that the game has. So, anyways, I don't want to narrate the entire thing, but the point is, I just wanted to give you a sort of a quick glimpse into how weird this game is. And if you have an Xbox 360 or you have a PlayStation 3, it is absolutely worth tracking down, especially if you are a Twin Peaks fan, because this game is just such a love letter to Twin Peaks. So, he's now going to finally leave this room, and you're going to get a good example of one of the things that I love about this game, and that is the conversations that Agent York has when he is in his car and he's talking to Zach, although he's on the phone with someone here and you're not sure who he's talking to. But we finally are going to meet him and get a quick scene with him before we wrap this thing up. And much like Agent Cooper in Twin Peaks, he is a character that is immediately weird and you immediately fall in love with. So he's talking to Zach, and you don't know who Zach is at this point, but it's basically this off-camera personality that you could assume is you. And he's kind of breaking the fourth wall when he has these conversations with you throughout the game. But you don't know that to start off with. But I always thought that was interesting, is that he's essentially talking to you as the game goes on, much like Cooper talks to Diane in the Twin Peaks episode. Or episodes, rather. So we're going to start off in the car with him, and he is on his way into town because of the murder that you witnessed in the beginning of the game. And there's a particular piece of evidence that connects this murder to other murders that he has been investigating in the past. But this opening conversation that he has, Francis York Morgan, FBI Special Agent, this opening conversation that he has, you're wondering what he's talking about because it sounds very clinical. He's talking about interdependency and this seemingly abusive relationship. And what he's actually talking about and having a debate about with the other person on the phone is Tom and Jerry, and why their relationship is the way that it is. And that type of conversation is a type of conversation that he has every time he's in the car about a variety of different topics, including a lot of movies that people will get a good chuckle out of. So, these red seeds that he's talking about are the piece of evidence that links the case to other cases that he's investigated. And he's, driving these back roads late at night in the rain, looking at the files on his computer, and then he's going to get into a car accident that essentially is his introduction into the area. But what you're meant to take away from this scene is just these monologue scenes that he has throughout the course of the game, basically anytime you're driving. And it really sets the tone for who he is, much like in Twin Peaks when you see Dale Cooper coming into town. You get a real feel for what that character is all about right away. It's the same thing here. But what causes the accident is he sees this sort of person in a raincoat that causes him to drive off the road, and he ends up crashing his car. And that's how we start the game and come out of the cutscenes and then gain control of him. Unfortunately, you're not going to see any of that because the game is basically unplayable because the frame rate is so bad. But I would highly recommend that you track it down on Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3 because it's such a great game and it's so much fun. And despite its technical limitations, it's got so much personality. So I wanted to talk about that because I've been thinking about Twin Peaks a lot lately because it's coming back. And this game deserves more attention than it got when it came out. So anyways, that's my ramble for this week. So if you like this video, then please click like and subscribe to our YouTube page. And I will be back again next week with another weekly whisper, and I will probably be talking about role-playing games because I have some good ones that I just started playing. So until next time, I will talk to you soon.